Hi there, this is David and welcome to The Games That Made Me. Here, we're going to be looking at some games from my childhood that pretty much molded me and formulated who I am as a gamer. In the last video, I spoke about the best series of RPGs on the NES, the Dragon Warrior games, all of which formed my early childhood, with each one pretty much coming out year after year and just getting better and better. Final Fantasy was the other NES RPG, and boy did Nintendo Power want to push it. Not only did they give extensive coverage and many issues, they even had a contest centered around it. But back when they did their ill-advised strategy guides, Final Fantasy was the only RPG that got the treatment. I read the thing so much that it fell apart, and then I sent away for a replacement issue, which I still do have today. Funny story though. I remember in 4th grade, every Friday afternoon in Mrs. Weber's class, we had what was called Read and Pop. Basically, you were able to bring in whatever book that you wanted and a can of soda, and then all the kids would silently read and drink their Cokes for the last hour of the day. Looking back now, it sounds kinda lame, but 9-year-old me loved it. There were many times that I would have a huge stack of Nintendo Powers in my book bag, and then I'd read them cover to cover in that hour. One time I brought in the Final Fantasy guide, and I started writing down what spells I wanted to learn, or how to plan on my party, and this little shit, Brad Crawford, shouted across the room, "This is read and pop, not read and write." I wanted to die, and I still hate that little bastard to this day. But anyway, I actually got Final Fantasy in 1994 Christmas in 3rd grade, and I was hooked from the get-go. Before that, the only true RPGs that I played were the first 2 Dragon Warriors, and Final Fantasy is heads and tails above those. The storyline and world building is nice, but I think what really sold me on it is the customization. Not only are you able to choose which 4 characters you want to join your party out of the possible 6 offered, but it's always fun to choose which 3 spells to teach your guys out of the 4 available for each level. Other RPGs at the time pretty much just gave you characters along with the story, and then they learned their next spells after they leveled up. So this was a nice diversion, and it was pretty cool that once you got the ship, and then especially the airship, you could kind of sequence break if you wanted to. So believe me, I was absolutely stoked when I got Final Fantasy II for Christmas in 1991. I remember pretty much playing it non-stop that entire Christmas break. But back then, I was really stupid and slow at games, and I really didn't understand strategy, so the Mist Dragon was pretty hard, but I ended up figuring it out. Octoman was brutal, but I passed through it with a ton of lit spells. However, the Antlion? He was a whole other ballgame, and I couldn't beat him. I got so frustrated that I put the game down for over a year, and I moved on to a different Final Fantasy game, Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. When I first read about this, I was thrilled. It was another Final Fantasy game after all, but it was marketed as a beginner's RPG. An RPG for those who have never played one before, which was odd to me, considering that I'd been playing RPGs since before I could even read. I just kind of assumed that everybody else played them too. So it hit me like a ton of bricks to realize that I was the odd man out. I enjoyed the music and the story, and after a little assistance from the Nintendo helpline getting through to Fireburg, it became the very first RPG that I beat, which not only moved me to tears, but gave me the confidence that I needed to beat other games on my list, such as Final Fantasy II. So I picked that bad boy back up, and I started a brand new save file. I beat the Antlion, and I continued on. Believe me, it was slow going from there, and I had no strategy guide to speak of, but I was determined to beat the game, especially when I saw on Nintendo Power that Final Fantasy III was now on the horizon. So I pretty much forced myself to beat Final Fantasy II before I got the next installment for my birthday. And let me tell you, at first this one just blew me away. The graphics and music were a quantum leap over the previous game, and the story was mind-blowing. I remember when I got to the scenario Split Up, and it was just so exciting to me to see the different portions of the story from different perspectives. I loved it. That is, until I got to the section where Magicite becomes available. This introduced a concept to me that I've hated ever since. It's what I call everyone can do everything syndrome. And being the kind of player that I am, I had to make sure that everyone knew every single spell as soon as they could. So rather than just playing the game normally, I would stop and grind up spell levels after every major dungeon, and this pretty much just killed the fun of the game for me. I still beat it, of course, and I did enjoy the exploration, the music, the ambiance, the characters, but the grind, that was the worst. Later on when I was in college, I bought the PlayStation Port, and this time though, I played it like an actual sane person. I didn't freak out if someone didn't learn a spell. In fact, I purposely made certain characters like Cyan and Sabin not learn any magic at all to impose a kind of class challenge. And with that restriction, I had so much more fun. Then, when I played it even later on the Game Boy Advance, I barely used the Magicite at all, and I still had a blast. So kind of shockingly, when I first played the game, I really didn't like it all that much, but after tooling around with it, it has become one of my favorites in a series that definitely made me. This has been David. If you like what I do here on this channel, please consider supporting me on Patreon. The link to it can be found in the video description. And also, please like, comment, and subscribe, and have a good day.